Hey, Max Chroma here with another tutorial video on how to use the HCWB Custom Color Range 2.0 action for Adobe Photoshop. Now, if you've downloaded the action and installed it into your copy of Photoshop in your Actions panel, I like to have it in button mode to make things a little quicker here. I'm just going to show a real-world photo example. So this is just an image of a car, already has a transparent background. And I'm just going to basically either use the eyedropper to set a color. I can look at the color wheel and see where that color is and what I'm selecting. Or I can just click the foreground color here and set that. It'll open up the color picker and set it that way. Either way, you want to make sure your foreground color is set to the color you want to extract. Okay, so I can pick something up in the tint region here or down into the shades. I might pick an area that's kind of like a blend between the two. And with the custom color range action, I'll be able to pick whether I want it to blend more into the tints and shades of this color. But I'm basically just going to select this custom color of the car, click the HCWB Custom Color Range 2 button, and that'll run through the various actions that create separate layers out of the hue of the image, the chroma, and the whiteness and blackness, and then finds the point at which that color was in those layers and then blends them together to give me a result that I have control over. I'm going to try to have this just be one short video with this one example and just show making some adjustments after creating the selection. What you get by default once this is done going through the smart detection, and it'll apply a mask over the original. And basically I could go ahead and just colorize that original right away. Okay, so I'm going to look at the properties up here, and I'm going to look in the layers. I could make those bigger, but really you can see here is a color layer. If I select that, my foreground is now set. I can open up the effects and just put a color overlay on that and change that if I want. Okay, I can, change it around. It doesn't really update in real time. So sometimes what I like to do is just make a new solid color layer. And then I can see what would happen if I were to just change that around to anything I want, change the hue, etc. So that's the way to just use it automatically to recolor something. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip past these ranges. These are the same thing as this button. It'll run from an original, and it'll just do it in different ranges, the divide range, maximum, medium, and minimum, or the difference range. And I have some other videos that I've already posted on my channel which go into greater detail on how this works. But I'm just going to use this example to quickly go through the workflow. So I'm going to click Make Adjustments. Now we can see the mask that's been generated, right? I can view this as the custom color that I selected. I can view it as a positive, view it as a negative, or view masked over the original like it was. We're just going to go make adjustments. Now I can choose a manual hue ramp mode, and if I do that though, right away it's going to not have this hue selected. It's going to be into the reds. So it'll open up this color adjustment layer, and it'll open up in the properties the hue saturation adjustment. And basically you can see how it's got the red selected. We would go over to that and move that over to capture the hue of our image. But you can see how I can fade it out from the other hues. Like I mentioned in another video, sometimes the shadows are actually in another hue range. Okay, but I really don't want to change the hue of this image or of the selection I've got. So I'm going to keep it in the difference hue ramp mode, and I'll have divide mode blending. We can see right away if I just click difference mode, that selects a lot of other stuff like the neutrals. This was the way that the 1.0 version worked. So that's picking up certain things that we maybe don't want in the mask selection. So I'll go back and click divide mode again. And that'll just run through with already the layers generated and give sort of a tighter or more accurate selection of the color we wanted. I can choose maximum blending, medium blending, or minimum to basically automatically use the layers in combination. And it's really just changing the blending mode of these layers of the hue, the chroma, the white, and black. I'll really just keep it on maximum blending or divide mode blending, and then go ahead and do the adjustments through setting the layer filtering. They're in here, really. You could just scroll through and see that there's chroma levels, chroma curves, and the chroma levels for blending into the neutral, etc. But to make it easier to see just the adjustments, I'm going to go name and click levels, or type in levels, and I can see this. So I've got chroma blending into chroma. Really not much going on there until I get down to the end. Kind of don't want to do that adjustment. Blending into neutral. And that's sort of taking things that were in the original probably a little bit more neutral or less chromatic colors, and it's removing those from the selection. Blending into whiteness. Okay, so that's where it sort of got more into the tints. I can choose that. The whiteness levels blending into shades. So that's where I've got control over how much it goes into those shades, right? Blending into blackness. And blending into tints from the blackness. It's a little bit different when you're blending into the tints from the blackness or the whiteness from the whiteness levels. And so it's like in the blackness, I can sort of enhance that adjustment this way, or into the shades from the whiteness one. That kind of works a little bit better because this was sort of a tint color to begin with. Okay, and we've got the hue angles, which, like I said, some of those shadows are a different hue, so that controls that. I'll take this blending into neutral, maybe pull that out of there. So I've got just this selection, right? And you still have master levels controls for each of those. So once I'm done doing that, I can go ahead and do replace color mask, but you don't want to do it when you have these layers filtered out like this. So I got to turn that filter off, so I'm looking at all the layers again. You do have that control over the grayscale. Again, full range is going to include all of the grays in the image selection. Hue range was what we really had going on. Chromatic is sort of like the neutrals included based on the chroma. Neutral only, you can see that's basically all of the neutral grayscales of the image only. Chromatic only would probably be similar to what the hue range is in this selection. But let's go ahead. We're done making some of these adjustments. Let's just go ahead and do replace color mask. And you can see that right here in color by itself. It's just a mask. If I put a background in here, you can see how it's essentially the color that we selected masked over the background or over the original. And I can go ahead and, again, make a solid color fill layer. I'll keep it this time. I'll just hit OK. That's my color fill instead of using this. And I can go ahead and change this to whatever I want. Okay, so that's this video. I'm just going to conclude right here. It's a basic way to extract a custom color from an image. Let me just do make adjustments, view it as positive, and I'll make sure I take out that background. Okay, I could convert this to a smart object, this whole group. Set that aside and be able to go in and edit it still. And I could do other selections from this based on another color area, right? So, you know, maybe I will do that. Convert this to a smart object right here. Convert to smart object. So I could double click, go in and still make adjustments to that. I'm going to take this one now and it'll duplicate to another document. But basically, let's say I just select this dark gray area. Okay, like it said before, it was a neutral color. I'll click that and run the color range 2.0 on that. It's going to duplicate to a new document, merge it down, so it won't have any of the other color separations in it. It won't have that smart object in it. That's in the previous document. This will allow me to make some adjustments after extracting that dark gray. And it won't go into the black. So it'd be like if I had black selected separately and then the dark gray. But really, if you're going to divide an image like this into a whole bunch of different colors, there's a lot of other ways to approach it. The Max Chroma Master Colorist Action Pack will automatically divide it into certain levels of black and gray and white, and it'll get to some of these tints and tones and shades of that hue, but it won't really be the exact color there. You'd have to merge them together to sort of get to it. And I'll show that in some other videos. This is probably just about done. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at that. I can turn on that color overlay to see what it was extracting. I can go ahead and do make adjustments, and we can see this. Being that it is a neutral gray color, I'm going to go ahead and put a white background. Just it includes the transparency of whatever you've had to begin with in your selection. Now I can go to, I put a white background in there just to make it a little easier while I'm making adjustments. Now I can go ahead and look at this grayscale full range. Hue range is really not going to do much because of the fact that it was a neutral gray originally. Chromatic is going to only select chromatic areas of the color. Neutral only cuts it down to just the neutral grays of the image. Chromatic only would be only the chromatic grays. I really want to go back to the full range that I had selected, right? Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments. First off, I can look at it under difference mode, and you'll see that it goes into all of that black and white. Divide mode, we'll go ahead and run through the smart detections again, get me back to what I had. Looking at maximum blending, medium blending, or minimum, cuts out some of that color automatically, but I'll keep it on maximum blending. And then I'll go to name levels in the filter, the layers filter, and just start making some adjustments to the levels with my properties panel open. How much this blends into the chromas. Okay, so I can really pull that away from the other area that I had selected before. All of that color, it doesn't affect the mask or the adjustment. It doesn't affect the selection, how it was blending into the white and black before. We have how much it blends into neutral. Not really going to do anything because it is a neutral color to begin with, a neutral gray. We've got blending into whiteness, blending into shades. Okay, so that's where it's going in some of those colorized shades of the image. So we can pull that away from there if we want the black to take over in those areas. Blending into blackness itself, it's pretty much already doing that, but this will also cut out some of those shades. So both of those levels work there. How much it blends into the tints. And the hue angle levels really won't do much when we're in grayscale full range. But I could take that away from some of that black area and from some of the shades. So we could finish this. I'll just uncheck that and do replace color mask. And then you'll see we've got that color selection really over just where those dark grays were in the original image. Right? And I can recolorize them however I want. Put another color layer in, solid color, and make that anything I want. Darken it, lighten it, add some color to it, etc. If I'm done with that, if I really just want to look at it, make adjustments, view it as positive, you know, there's ways in which I can work with this separately now. And same with this one, we have the smart object of that. Let's say we've got a white background. I could quickly just flatten this image, go to image mode, grayscale, bitmap, go to 1200 dpi with halftone screen. Maybe I'll choose 45 lines per inch and just convert that to halftones. That would be if you're going to use it for screen printing. Same thing with this one. We could flatten the image, convert it like so. Okay, so I'm going to conclude the video like that. If you wanted to look at the two colors combined. Let me undo a little bit. Undo that. Let's take this guy and convert it to a smart object. We'll bring that in here as another layer. We'll close that document. So I dragged it in. And to make sure it lines up, you may have to put something in that is definitely in the corner to line up both layers. Okay, I'll look at that over a white background. I'll go into this smart object and I will say view as custom color. I'm going to Control S to save that smart object, exit back out. We've got this one right here. I do believe they are lined up. I'm going to double click into this smart object. Okay, and again, it's got all those layers to make the adjustments. I'm going to do view as custom color. It's in the dark gray. And I'm going to Control S to save. It updates the object, close it. And then to view both of these together, I'm going to take one of these smart objects, the one on top, set it to linear burn. Okay, so we've got, oh, and I moved it a bit. I believe they are lined up. Yeah. Okay, so there I've pulled out the dark gray and this tone of the car color. And I could start to rebuild the image out of just a few custom color selections if that's what I wanted to do. That I think I'd save for another video and show some of the other techniques I have that will automatically pull this image into different divisions of color. And sometimes it's easier to merge it down. There are other ways to approach it as well. It's really a complex subject into what are some of the best ways with each given image or design to get into separating the colors into just a small set of custom tones. But the custom color range 2.0 that I've created as an action for free for Adobe Photoshop, I find to be very useful in just making custom selections and having a lot of control over how they blend into each other. That's different from just choosing the color range tool and picking a color and then trying to access all of that, right? You may go ahead and get to a lot of it, but as you start to expand in, we'll go ahead and make a new color mask. I'll fill that with black, deselect it, and then fill it with white behind it. Okay, and there you'll see how it starts to pull in those neutral grays. The more I wanted to extract into that area, it's keeping all the tints into it. Didn't get all the way down into the shades like the other one did. It pulled in some of that neutral gray areas, the other color hues, and you don't have that much control over how it blends into the different portions of the image like you do with the custom color range. The HCWB divides the image based on hue, chroma, whiteness, and blackness, and then allows you to make those levels adjustments as I shown. So I'm going to conclude this video and we'll do some other examples in separate videos. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.